In this video, we'll talk about creating a display state. Display states are accessed from your configuration manager in the bottom section of your window. A display state allows you to create multiple instances of your assembly by changing the appearances of components. We can show and hide components, change whether they're wireframe or shaded, change their transparency, and also change their appearances. What we can't do is change the actual components. A configuration allows you to substitute certain components, suppress them, add new subassemblies, as well as change the appearance of your components. There are different instances where you would want to use a configuration and a display state. We also have options to link our display states to configurations, so they can be used in multiple instances. Let's first take a look at adding a display state. By right-clicking on display state 1, you'll notice that we can add a display state. Display state 2 allows us to do things such as change the appearances. Back in our feature manager, I'm going to expand the display pane and modify the appearance of the first hub component. You'll notice that under the appearance tab, we have an appearance that's located in the bottom right-hand section of this quadrant. Now this allows me to add an appearance to only a display state. For instance, let's change this hub to red, scroll all the way down, and link this only to this display state. So what this means is if I go back to my display states, the original display state 1 still shows that as original gray color, while display state 2 has it as red. We can also do things like hide components. If I hide this component in display state 2, it's still visible in display state 1. This gives us great flexibility in organizing and categorizing our components together. If you're making a technical manual, you can hide and show components in certain display states, change their transparency, change how they're displayed to give the user a much greater understanding of how components go together and when they go together. For things like exploded views, we'll be using configurations. Now that we understand display states, let's take a look at linking them to configurations. First, I want to add a new configuration. In SOLIDWORKS 2015, to link a configuration in a display state, we'll have to right-click on the display state and go to its properties. Inside here, we can change the display state name, hide new components when inactive, and also link to configurations. Now, it's important to note that once we link to configurations, these display states will only be available when you're on that configuration. You'll notice that we now have display state 3, but the appearance on the screen looks the same as display state 2. That's because when it was linked, it created the same display state in our new configuration. We can go back to display state 1 or display state 2, but only that secondary display state was linked in our original configuration. If we add a new display state, this one takes the appearances that we had set in display state 3. But that doesn't mean that we can't change them. We can do things like remove the appearance, change the display of certain items, or even hide them altogether. And these will be displayed only in that display state. If at any point in time we go into the properties and unlink these, all display states will become available for all configurations. We have the option to purge redundant since a few of them were copied, but since I made changes to display state 4, it's no longer a redundant display state. I can delete that display state as well as display state 3 to simplify my options. Now that we've taken a look at adding display states to your assembly, as well as linking them to configurations, let's use one of our display states to make a reasonable example. In this case, let's go ahead and remove everything we've done and take a look at how we would possibly use display states for this assembly. In this assembly, we might want to remove all this hardware, as well as the nut and certain components. Let's remove the axle. Let's keep the bearing spacers, but remove the outside hub. Now you'll notice that we have several components here. This component is currently transparent. Let's go ahead and make sure that its display is default or manually control it to be shaded. So this would be a great way for us to possibly add some color to the bearings. Go ahead and select both bearings, change your color to blue, make sure that it's this display state. This gives the user a good understanding of how the hub, the two bearings, and the spacer interact. We could also create a section view to show this to the user as well. At any point in time, we could go back to display state 1 and have our entire assembly shown in its original appearance. So, this is a great way to categorize things for technical documentations or really just making good quality images to pass along to users in your group.